Clara built her mountain retreat to escape decades of noise, and she never expected her son's wife to treat that piece like a shared timeshare. My son's wife invited a dozen strangers to my mountain property without asking me first, convinced that my house, my savings, and my patience were hers to use freely. So I swapped the entry code, cut off her access to my backup credit card, and let her uncover a harsh reality on her own. The woman she'd been ordering around like staff was actually the one who held every deed and every dollar. I'm Clara, and I purchased this cabin in the mountains for one reason: silence. After 4 decades grinding away at a demanding accounting career, I wanted nothing but quiet. My late husband had left me the means, so I bought 20 acres of pine forest and a modest, well-built house. It became my refuge. Mornings meant fresh pour-over coffee, watching deer graze past my window, total tranquility. Then one ordinary Tuesday, my phone lit up. My son Josh almost never texted this early, but the message came from his wife, Brianna. "Hey, bringing 12 friends up this weekend for a retreat, can't wait." No question, no request. She simply assumed my property was hers to command. I'd previously given Josh and Brianna access to one of my backup cards for real emergencies, trusting them not to abuse it. I didn't spiral into panic or tears. I just set my mug down and thought clearly. Fighting with Brianna always meant endless, draining conflict, and I was finished playing along. She wanted a rugged mountain getaway for her circle of friends? Fine. I'd deliver exactly that. My land held 2 structures: the main house, which I'd fully modernized, and an old bunkhouse near the tree line. That bunkhouse had a functioning bathroom and wood stove, but zero insulation, no internet, and bare mattresses, essentially indoor camping. I headed to my shed and grabbed heavy-duty locks. I secured the garage. I reprogrammed the digital lock on my main door. Then I spent the afternoon relocating my nice blankets, good coffee, and split firewood into my personal space. I left the bunkhouse open and taped one note to its door, spelling out the property rules, including a key warning. The front gate would lock automatically every night at 9 for security purposes. I swept my porch with a quiet smile. If they wanted to crash an unplanned wilderness trip, they'd learn exactly how unforgiving that wilderness could feel to uninvited visitors. Friday evening, 3 luxury vehicles rolled up my gravel drive. Doors flew open and loud music shattered the calm immediately. Brianna emerged filming everything on her phone. Josh trailed behind, arms loaded with grocery bags. 12 strangers spilled out laughing, hauling oversized suitcases. They barely acknowledged my presence. I sat calmly on my porch, sipping tea. Brianna eventually spotted me and gave a careless wave. She strode toward my front entrance, expecting easy access. She grabbed the handle, but the door held firm. Frowning, she punched the old code into the keypad. The light flashed red. Denied. "Mom, the door's jammed," Josh called out. I rose unhurriedly and stepped to the porch edge. "It's not jammed," I said evenly. "The code changed." Brianna folded her arms, irritation clear on her face. "Then unlock it. My friends are freezing. We need to unload." I gestured toward the trees. "Your lodging is the bunkhouse. This main house is my personal space. I don't host crowds in my home." Brianna went silent with shock. Josh let a bag slip from his grip. "Mom, you can't be serious. We drove 4 hours for this." "I'm completely serious," I answered. "You organized a mountain getaway without consulting me. The bunkhouse is unlocked. It has a stove and bathroom. The rules are posted on the door." Brianna scoffed. "That rundown shack? It's freezing in there." "There's an axe out back," I said quietly. "Feel free to split some wood." I turned, walked into my warm home, and locked the door behind me. Through the window, I watched them stand there, stunned. They'd wanted an authentic wilderness experience. Now they had one. I woke the next morning to a calm sunrise. I brewed a rich, dark roast and toasted a fresh bagel. My home stayed warm and peaceful while frost coated the trees outside. Sitting by the window, I studied the bunkhouse. Its chimney produced barely any smoke. They clearly had no idea how to build a proper fire. Around 8, Brianna stormed across the yard in designer boots and a flimsy, fashionable jacket. She pounded on my door. I sipped my coffee slowly, cracked the door a few inches, keeping the chain fastened. "Good morning," I said pleasantly. "This is absolutely ridiculous," Brianna snapped, teeth practically chattering. "That shed's water heater is useless. Nobody can shower properly, and there's no coffee maker in there." "There's a kettle in the bunkhouse," I replied. "Boil some water." "We brought whole bean coffee," she shot back. "We need your espresso machine. Let me in, now." I stayed composed. She expected raised volume to work on me the way it worked on my son. Not anymore. "My kitchen stays closed," I said. "You trespassed onto my property uninvited. Consider yourself fortunate I'm even letting you stay on the land. If the bunkhouse doesn't suit you, there's a motel 30 miles down the road. I'd suggest booking there." I shut the solid door softly before she could respond, hearing her gasp in disbelief. She marched back across the frozen yard, clutching her thin jacket tight. She'd lost her grip on the situation, and her friends were now cold, hungry, and increasingly annoyed. More hard lessons awaited them. By noon, the group realized complaining wouldn't summon breakfast from nowhere. I watched them pile into their cars, heading into town, a 40-minute drive each way just for food. Their entire morning vanished chasing a simple meal. When they finally returned, they carried heavy grocery bags and a massive speaker. They unrolled yoga mats right on my back patio. Bass thumped hard enough to rattle my windows. Brianna was clearly testing my limits, trying to prove to her friends she still controlled my space. I stayed inside, refusing to engage. Arguing only convinces people their behavior is negotiable. Instead, I walked to my utility closet. The patio outlets ran on their own separate breaker. I flipped it off. The music cut out instantly. Confused voices drifted from outside. Someone fumbled with the speaker's plug repeatedly. Then I opened my laptop and accessed my router settings. Brianna had saved my Wi-Fi password on her phone previously, so I changed it entirely. Without power or internet, 12 people who lived on social media suddenly had nothing to do. I settled by my window with a novel. 10 minutes later, Josh knocked at my back door. "Mom, did the power trip and the Wi-Fi die too?" he asked, clearly embarrassed. "No," I said through the screen. "I switched them off myself. That patio is my private reading spot. If your group wants music and internet, they can use their phone data near the bunkhouse." Josh rubbed his neck nervously. "They're getting really upset, Mom." "Then they're welcome to pack up and leave," I said simply, flipping a page. I smiled, watching him retreat, defeated. For once, their frustration wasn't mine to solve. By late afternoon, tension in the bunkhouse camp was thick. Brianna's friends were sick of the cold shack. They'd spent real money on groceries, expecting to cook a proper dinner in my spacious kitchen. Josh approached my door again, looking drained. "Mom, Brianna bought salmon and vegetables for everyone, he said quietly. "That tiny stove in the bunkhouse only has 2 weak burners. She can't feed 12 people on that. Can she just borrow your oven? 1 hour, that's it?" I studied him. A grown man, yet constantly negotiating on his wife's behalf instead of setting limits himself. "Josh, you're missing the real issue," I said. "This isn't about an oven. It's about boundaries. Brianna treats me like hired help running a lodge. She shows me no respect, and neither does she respect this house." "She's just stressed," he defended weakly. "She's stressed because she created a mess she can't manage," I countered. "That's not my responsibility to fix. The kitchen stays locked." I closed the door. Through the window, I watched Josh deliver the news. Brianna threw her hands up, shouting visibly. Several friends shot her looks of pure irritation. Their anger wasn't directed at me. It targeted Brianna, who'd promised a luxury getaway and delivered a freezing shack instead. 10 minutes later, a car engine started. Josh and Brianna drove back into town again, this time for fast food to feed 12 hungry, exhausted friends. I made myself a warm bowl of soup and ate in peace, realizing that genuine power never requires shouting. Sometimes a firm boundary and patience are all it takes to let people face what their own choices created. By the time Josh and Brianna left for burgers, the sun had dipped below the ridgeline, and the mountain cold turned brutal. I finished dinner, cleaned up, and checked the clock. Nearly 9. My property sits at the base of a long, steep dirt road, gated with heavy iron doors my late husband and I installed years ago to keep cattle from wandering. I typically left it open during daylight, but the posted rules clearly stated it locked automatically each night at 9 for security. I bundled up, walked down with a flashlight, and pulled the iron gates shut, securing them with heavy chain and a padlock. Then I returned home and went to bed. I never texted Josh a warning since the 9 o'clock rule had been posted on the bunkhouse door since their arrival. They were grown adults on private property, not guests at a public resort. Around 10, headlights swept across my bedroom window, followed by a honking horn. I ignored it. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. Josh, sounding panicked. "Mom, the gate's locked. We've got all the food and it's freezing. We can't get up the hill." "I locked it at 9 for security," I replied calmly. "You should have asked about house rules before inviting a dozen people here." "Just open it," Brianna screamed in the background. "No," I said. "Park along the shoulder and walk up. It's only a quarter mile. Bundle up." I ended the call and switched off my lamp, listening as Josh and Brianna trudged up that dark, steep hill, arms full of rapidly cooling takeout in bitter wind. I felt completely at peace in my warm bed, knowing their dream retreat was falling apart by morning. The next day, gloom hung over the bunkhouse. I enjoyed a quiet sunrise on my porch while nobody emerged until nearly 10. Brianna's friends looked wrecked, shivering in their expensive coats and glaring at her openly. She'd promised luxury and delivered a survival ordeal instead. Josh walked over, clearly humiliated. "Mom, Brianna wants to leave. Her friends are done with her, but there's a problem. A plow came through overnight and buried the road entrance in snow. Our car's stuck outside the gate, so are the other 2. Brianna tried booking hotel rooms last night, but her card got declined. Her friends won't cover it since she promised an all-expenses trip, and now they expect her to deliver." I took my time sipping coffee. "That's unfortunate," I said. "Could we borrow your card?" he asked softly. "Just for a hotel." "No," I said. "I actually canceled that shared emergency card yesterday afternoon. If you can afford hosting 12 people for a weekend trip, you clearly don't need my emergency funds anymore." Josh's face went pale as the full scope of my actions registered. This wasn't just locked doors. I'd severed the invisible leash Brianna used to control my resources. She'd leaned on my money, my house, my patience to fund her image. I'd cut all 3 in a single weekend. "You planned this," he whispered. "I protected myself," I corrected. "You let your wife walk over me because it was simpler for you. I just stopped making it simple. Go tell her she needs to solve her own financial mess. I'm not a bank." Josh nodded slowly, reality sinking in, then walked back to deliver the news that for once, I wouldn't bail them out. With her card declined, her friends refusing to pay, and everyone desperate to leave, Brianna had no option but to face that snow-covered entrance herself. I watched from my warm window as 12 people in designer outfits grabbed rusty shovels from my shed. They spent 2 hours digging their vehicles free from frozen dirt. Brianna's friends had stopped speaking to her entirely. Her carefully built image had collapsed. She wasn't a generous hostess sharing a luxury cabin. She was an entitled guest locked out by the true owner. Once the cars were clear, Brianna trudged back up to return the shovels, makeup smeared, boots caked in mud, utterly defeated. She paused at my porch steps. I opened the door a few inches, waiting. "You ruined my whole weekend," she said, voice trembling with humiliated tears. "My friends hate me now. They'll never talk to me again." "I ruined nothing," I said gently. "I just revealed the truth. You invited people to a house you don't own, using money you don't have. Your own lies wrecked this weekend. I simply refuse to cover for them." She searched my face for guilt and found none. For years, she'd manipulated me through guilt. Without that leverage, she had nothing left. "Goodbye, Brianna," I said softly, closing the door and turning the lock. That click was the most satisfying sound I'd heard all year, my quiet victory complete. I walked off, poured tea, and savored the silence returning to my home. They packed up in complete silence. No music, no photos, no laughter. Josh carried the last bag down, avoiding eye contact entirely. He knew he'd failed to manage his wife, and knew I'd no longer serve as their safety net. I stepped onto the porch one final time. Josh paused at the bottom step, looking tired and small. "Mom, I'm sorry," he said, voice cracking. "I should have asked before we came. Should have told her no. I just hate fighting with her." "I know you do," I said evenly, but dodging conflict with her just meant dumping that conflict on me. "I won't carry that weight anymore, Josh. I love you, but my home isn't your battleground. Until you set boundaries with your wife, you're not welcome back here." He nodded, absorbing the weight of it, and didn't argue. He walked to the car and got behind the wheel. Brianna already sat inside, staring blankly out the window. No wave goodbye. I didn't expect one. 3 luxury cars rolled through the open gate and vanished down the mountain road, dust settling over the gravel. I walked down, pulled the iron gates shut, and locked them tight. Then I headed to the bunkhouse. They'd left it trashed, but that didn't matter. It was my mess to handle on my own schedule. I opened the windows, letting cold, fresh air clear out the mingled scent of perfume and fast food. My home belonged to me again, and the exhausting show was finally over. Standing among the trees, I breathed deeply as a heavy weight lifted from my shoulders. 3 months passed without a word between us. I spent winter reading, baking bread, watching snow blanket the valley. The quiet in my cabin no longer felt fragile. It felt complete. I carried no guilt over enforcing my limits. The peace I'd reclaimed was entirely my own. Late March, my phone rang. "Josh." I answered slowly, setting down my tea. "Hi, Mom," he said, his voice steadier than I'd heard in years. "I know it's been a while, just wanted to say Brianna and I started couples counseling, working through a lot, mostly boundaries and respect. That truly makes me happy," I said honestly. "She was furious for months," he admitted, but eventually realized her friends abandoned her because she lied to them. Not because you locked a door. It made her look inward, and it made me stop enabling everything." He paused, letting the silence settle. "Can I visit next month? Just me, no friends, no chaos. I'll take the bunkhouse if you want." I gazed out at the melting snow, revealing hardy green pines underneath. Spring was arriving. "You can take the guest room, Josh," I said softly. "You'll always be my son, but remember my house isn't a hotel and my peace isn't up for negotiation." "I know, Mom. I promise." We said our goodbyes. I hung up and stepped onto my porch. The mountain air felt sharp, cold, wonderfully clear. I never needed lawyers, police, or heated arguments to reclaim my own life. I only needed the courage to draw a line and refuse to let anyone step over it. Breathing in that crisp air, I finally grasped something I should have understood years earlier. Setting boundaries never makes you cruel. Sometimes people only learn to respect your kindness once you stop letting them mistake it for weakness.